السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
إن شاء الله صوتي واضح؟
نعم واضح يا سيدي.
الله يسلمكم. إن شاء الله نبدأ. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to this virtual orientation seminar on the UAE Peaceful Nuclear Energy Program, organized by Abu Dhabi Chamber in cooperation with Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation. Our meeting today aims to inform businesses about the UAE Peaceful Nuclear Energy Program, its objectives and stages, as well as the advantages. Now, I would like to invite our key speaker in this seminar, Engineer Majid Al-Zar'ouni, Nuclear Fuel Quality Surveillance Engineer at ENEC, to lecture us about this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Saif, for the beautiful introduction. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to you. Thank you again for attending this awareness session on the UAE Peaceful Nuclear Energy Program. Like Saif has mentioned, my name is Majid Al-Zar'ouni. I'm a Nuclear Fuel Quality Surveillance Engineer working under the Nuclear Fuel Management Department, and I'll be presenting a brief on the nuclear program in the UAE. Before we start with this presentation, I'd like to just give general information that, as you well know, yesterday, the Sustainability Week was launched in Abu Dhabi, and ENEC is actually participating and supporting this exhibition that is placed in ADNEC, the Abu Dhabi Exhibition Center. So for more information on the UAE Peaceful Energy Program, you are more than welcome to visit our booth in the exhibition, where you can experience, ask your questions, and learn more about the program and our Barak nuclear power plants. With that being said, let's start the presentation. So first, we'll start with why nuclear energy in the UAE. So in order to tackle the concern with respect to the increasing GDP and the power consumption, the government reviewed multiple energy options. This is to meet the future demand. These options included oil, gas, coal, renewables, and nuclear energy. So these energy sources were all assessed in terms of relative cost, environmental impact, security of supply, and the potential for long-term economic development. So renewable energy, of course, is a very important part of the UAE energy mix, but can only supply around 2 to 3% of the required capacity. Coal, although low in cost, presents some environmental concerns with it. Natural gas, of course, generates the largest share of UAE electricity, but might not be able to meet the future demand. So with that, nuclear energy emerged as the right choice for the UAE because it is both safe, clean, and is a proven technology, as well as being a commercially viable and delivers significant volumes of baseload electricity with nearly zero emissions to the UAE. So now we can talk about the UAE net zero vision by 2050, which is a strategy developed by the UAE leadership and we are supporting. So first, this aligns with the Paris Agreement signed by the UAE back in 2016, as well as it being the first MENA nation to commit to this target. Also, as the first OPEC nation to go for net zero. Now, with the mix that we currently have and we're planning on, with the nuclear energy supporting it, by 2050, we are targeting to achieve 50% of the UAE energy mix to be renewable and clean energy. So now, let's talk about nuclear energy and let's try to focus some more details on it and understand what happens. So let's try to understand how nuclear energy is in terms of electricity and the power that it can provide. So one uranium fuel pellet, which is a pellet of this size basically, is actually equivalent to 481 cubic meters of natural gas, 474 liters of oil, and over 1 ton of coal. This same uranium pellet can actually power one Emirati household for 24 hours a day for 4 months. Now, why do we specifically say Emirati household? It's because, as you know, we'll know, the climate in the UAE is very hot. So a lot of the households in the UAE do generally have the HVACs or the AC conditioners open all of the time. So that requires even more energy. And this small pellet can actually provide that for 24 hours a day for 4 months. So the reactor can actually produce uninterrupted electricity for about 18 months, which is one of the main reasons why nuclear energy was chosen. The same pellet that I'm mentioning right now, actually in our reactor, we have over 21 million pellets of uranium. So imagine the huge amount of energy that we can produce for the UAE. So nuclear energy, again, provides an efficient and a very stable source of electricity to grid, unlike other renewable energy sources. So now let's talk about nuclear energy in the UAE. So first, we want to understand the UAE policy on peaceful nuclear energy. So back in 2008 in April, the UAE released the policy of the United Arab Emirates on the evaluation and the potential development of peaceful nuclear energy. So the policy is actually built on the most exacting standards of safety, transparency, and security, making the UAE a role model for nuclear energy development worldwide. And in doing so, the policy emphasizes 6 key principles that are listed right here in front of you. And in the fall of 2009, the UAE issued its nuclear energy law, which commits the nation to the most exacting standards of safety again, transparency, and security for the nation. So let's try to take a step back now, understand the venture or the joint venture agreement that created this project for the UAE. In October of 2016, ENIC actually signed the joint venture agreement, which formed a long-term relationship with KEPCO, a party, South Korea. So as a result, we established 2 dedicated subsidiary companies, both of which are majority owned by ENIC and KEPCO taking a minority stake. So those 2 companies, as you can see here, are Nawa company, energy company, and Baraka One company as well. So these are all under the umbrella of Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation and the involvees. Now let's go further in the next slide on the governance structure of those companies. So as you can see over here, both companies are minority owned by KEPCO for 18% and majority owned by ENIC for 82%. Now, what's the main function of those companies? So Baraka One company represents the commercial interest of the Baraka project, including all of the finance and business continuity and whatnot, while Nawa Energy Company is actually concerned on operating and maintaining the 4 units at Baraka Nuclear Power Plant. Now, let's try to understand the prime contract and the technology used for the Baraka Nuclear Power Plant. So the prime contractor, again, for the Baraka nuclear power plant was selected following a very exhaustive year-long review that was conducted by a team of experts, both national and international. Upon the completion of the process, we selected a Korean design nuclear reactor by the Korea Electric Power Corporation pressurized water reactor, technology called APR 1400. Now, why the name 1400? That's because each reactor can actually produce 1400 megawatts of electricity, and the same reactor actually combines the latest developments of safety, performance, and technology proven over decades of operation. So the LPF 1400 is actually certified by the US NRC, or the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the design that we're using at Baraka actually includes a number of further enhancements, which is to adapt to the suit of the UAE's unique climate conditions, FANA requirements, and the lessons learned post-Fukushima accident. Now, if you actually have a chance to visit or go by the Baraka nuclear power plant site, this is exactly what you would be seeing in front of you. So this is the construction progress as of November 2021 across the 4 units. It's 96%. Unit 1, alhamdulillah, is commercially operational. Unit 2 is currently connected to the grid and is going through a series of tests before it goes under commercial operation. Unit 3 construction has been completed, and Unit 4, I believe, is around 91% completed for construction. So this is an amazing and a very proud achievement for us. If you would look back at pictures from 2008, that area was completely empty, but now you can see 4 nuclear reactors, alhamdulillah, constructed and some being operational. So how is this project and how is the nuclear peaceful energy program in the UAE considered to be a powerhouse for stable growth for the UAE and the region? Here, we want to discuss about the fact that Baraka is actually spearheading the UAE's clean energy future. Now, going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, is that this will heavily support in providing or achieving the UAE 2050 strategy with respect to clean energy. So again, the plant operates for 24/7 from 12 to 18 months before refueling, after which they go through an outage, they refuel the plant again, and then they go back to refueling it. and it can produce around, for all 4 units, we produce around 5,600 megawatts of electricity, each unit comprising 7.5% of the overall electricity in the UAE. So for all units, producing 25% of the energy required by the UAE. Now, furthermore, let's talk about the sustainable growth and the contribution from the project. So to date, we've actually contracted more than 2,000 local companies as a part of the Baraka project. This includes contracts worth more than $4.8 billion. Also, once fully operational, like was mentioned, even though the Baraka plant will provide 25% of the electricity, it's also going to prevent the release of 21 million tons of CO2 emissions. Furthermore, we're also very proud to state that we have more than 3,000 employees from nationalities all over the world to benefit from their experiences and operating experiences as well. Also, 60% of the actual workforce is considered from UAE nationals, which is also a very proud achievement for us. Now, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the development of our people in the program. So from the start, we were very keen and we wanted to ensure that we start to develop our workforce based on the international best practices. This is based on the lessons learned from our colleagues working in the operating nuclear energy facilities around the world. Also, we've had, through the Energy Pioneers program, the best and the brightest science students, engineering graduates, and experienced professionals receiving training from the nuclear industry leading global experts. We already have the teams in place to run the plants once operational, and we are working to invest in different groups for the upcoming 60 years to lead the project. Because as we all know, the most important thing is developing the proper human capacity to support the project for the lifetime of it. Another item that we're very proud of to announce as well is that we have around 20% of female employees working in our project. This actually comprises of the highest percentage of female employees around the world in the nuclear industry. Now, before we wrap up this presentation, I would like to share a photo that's very dear to my heart. So the development of the nuclear energy in the UAE is a key part, again, of our government strategy for development, growth, and prosperity. Our nation's leadership actively supports the UAE's peaceful energy, nuclear energy program because it's already generating thousands of skilled jobs, as well as producing clean, efficient energy for the next 60 years. As you can well see in the photo in front of you, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan with His Excellency Khaldoon Mubarak inside our main control room during a visit that was amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. This demonstrates the UAE's leadership focus and support they are providing to ensure the success of the UAE peaceful nuclear program. Another reason why this photo is important is that, as you can see, His Highness is actually focusing on the human capital that we have, the people that will be supporting the project for the next 60 years to come. With that, I would like to conclude this presentation. Again, thank you all for your valuable time and attending this presentation. I'd like to basically thank you again for joining and listening, and I want to open the floor for any questions you may have. Again, thank you very much. You can feel free to raise your hand and then unmute for your questions, or you can write them in the chat box if you'd prefer doing so. Yeah, just like Zamzam has mentioned in the chat box. So if there are no specific questions, I guess we can end the presentation today. But before we do so, I'd like to also remind everyone, our colleague here, Shams Al-Balushi, she shared a survey in the chat box. If you would be so kind to fill out that survey, we use this information to measure the level of satisfaction of the material presented in the session, and we use it to further improve our presentation in the future. Before we end, again, I'd like to give the opportunity to Saif and Zemzem if they'd like to mention anything before we conclude the presentation.
No, thank you, Majid.
Thank you, Zemzem. Saif, any closing remarks from your side?
Thank you so much, Engineer Majid. We have reached the end of our excellent seminar today, and we'll see you, inshallah, in another event in the future. Thank you all. Thank you.
Inshallah. Again, thank you, Abu Dhabi Chambers, for organizing this beautiful seminar, and we appreciate everyone's attending. Have a wonderful day and stay safe. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Energy, Majid, I think we have one question in the chat box.
Okay, let me just see. Okay, yeah, that's an excellent question. How about research? So I can't read your name because it says SENG, but thank you again for the question. So basically, in the UAE, Nawar, thank you, Nawar. So we're currently actually having a R&D department, a research and development, in which we're building the different strategies and establishing the proper connections and partnerships with different institutes, whether be it universities or research institutes around the world and even in the UAE, working very closely with Khalifa University to understand the best needs of both the Baraka nuclear power plant in terms of developing the appropriate solutions to whatever issues that they may need, to have the plants operating in a more efficient manner and supporting other issues like that, and as well as sharing our operating experience, benefiting the nuclear industry around the world and learning from them. So they're currently actually working on this, and they're establishing the proper strategy. We're working very closely with them as the fuel team as well. And this is going to be also a very important sector in the nuclear industry. As always, we always try to improve ourselves, learn from our operating experiences, and whatever issues to further develop our program. Nawar, thank you again for sharing your question. Appreciate it very much. Okay. Thank you. I hope that clarified. Then again, if we have no further questions, I guess we can end the presentation for today. Again, please do take the time to share the survey, and thank you all for attending. Thank you, Saif. Thank you, Zamzam.
Thank you, Majid. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we reach our event today. Thank you so much, all. See you, inshallah, in our future event. Thank you all.